Welcome, one and all, to our study research award process session today for the Fulbright Study Research Award. As you likely know, I'm Dr. Daniel Beniewski, and Dr. Andy Hogue is also here with us today. And we're going to do a few things today. The main sort of focus will be talking about the process of applying for a study research award through Baylor. We've talked about this with you in some general ways, but we have some very specific scaffolding that we put into place to help guide and mentor you throughout this process. So that will be a lion's share of what we focus on today. Before we get there, though, we're going to have just sort of a broad strokes overview of a number of things as they relate to your application. In particular, some expectations that we have for the application process. And then after talking about the details of the application process, we're going to talk a little bit about some other aspects of the award, in particular letters of recommendation and letters of affiliation. And then we'll have, there'll be ample time to ask questions. So we'll have a dedicated time at the end of our time to ask some questions. Although if you have questions throughout, please do feel free to either raise your hand or type something in the chat box, and we'll try to answer those as we go along as well. So to kick things off, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Hogue.
Terrific to be with you, to see some familiar faces and some not so familiar faces, people I haven't had the pleasure yet of meeting. So I want to, as Dr. Beniewski mentioned, I really, from the outset here, from the jump, we want to kind of give you a frame for this process. So we're going to quickly jump, as you'll see in a few moments, down to the nitty-gritty of how the kind of the mechanics of the process work. But before we do, we really just, don't want to just fixate on the kind of bits and pieces, right? But give you a sense of the whole and how we approach this and why we approach this the way we do. We'll say first and foremost, Dr. Beniewski and I are teachers first and foremost. I mean, that's sort of how we identify ourselves professionally. And view this process of applying for a Fulbright very much like a process of teaching and learning. Obviously the thing that you're going to produce here at the end is an application for a Fulbright award, and hopefully a successful application for a Fulbright award. But our hope and our expectation is that this will be a process of enrichment, right? Of learning about yourself and of kind of situating yourself within, within the context of Fulbright, which means fixating yourself within a kind of global, international conversation, right? I mean, what you're proposing to do is to be a cultural ambassador on behalf of the United States of America, right? That's a pretty noble, high calling, and so we like to kind of set that in part as the frame for how we approach this. And so I want to go through just a couple of items with you in that vein about what we expect of you, what you can expect of us, and then maybe sort of what Fulbright expects of all of us. And I want to start by just mentioning a little bit of what you can expect from us. And I just kind of named that a little bit, that we view this as high calling, right? The fact that you're applying for a Fulbright, we think it's a pretty serious step for you. You're proposing to go do something that's pretty substantial and significant and consequential, and so we promise to sort of treat it as that, right? To treat this process of you crafting an application, we view that as something worthy of support, right, and worthy of our time and energy and effort. So we're going to commit to you to bring a level of excellence to that. And as I'm going to say and tell you in just a minute, we also expect, immediately in return that you yourself are bringing a level of excellence to this. So we commit that to you, and want you to commit that to yourself and to us as well. And so, I think that's, again, like this is something worth doing well, and we firmly believe that. And so you can expect that from us. The other thing I think you can expect from us is responsiveness. We are going to be here to help guide you through this process. And so you can expect that we will always be responsive to you. Now, that doesn't always mean we can, turn around and answer to a question in 15 minutes, but we anticipate that we will be always prompt with our assistance, and that if you haven't heard from us quickly on something, ping us again, right? We view this as an exchange, right? And so don't think of us as people far off and removed from your process. We very much want to commit to be responsive to you and to the things that you need. You will need questions answered. I think that's going to become abundantly clear as we begin to start talking about process. That Fulbright is something that if you have questions, good. We often sort of make the joke that Fulbright is one name for many things, right? And our answer to most of your questions is likely going to be something like, it depends, because every Fulbright award is different. And so when you have questions, come to us with those. We'll give you the answers, and if we don't know the answers, we have access to finding the answers. And so we commit to kind of the way we view it is, we are joining Team Kale and Team Cameron and Team Valerie, right? We're here to support and be on your side, in your corner, helping you do this well. So in turn, we have expectations of you. The first of those expectations really is actually an expectation that Fulbright has of us, of all of us here on this call, which is that if you go through the process and submit a Fulbright application, the expectation is that you will accept the award if it's offered to you. And we, maybe that's sort of implied, maybe you're assuming as much, but in case not, we want to make that explicit from the outset. And the reason for that is, they go from this huge mass of applications down to a few selections, and they've weeded out some people along the way. And so, you've done a disservice to someone else if you accept award, or if you don't accept an award that's been offered to you. The other thing is we have a sort of long-term institutional relationship with Fulbright, and I'll tell you, you are the beneficiaries here today in April of 2021. You are the beneficiaries of Baylor Fulbright winners who have gone before you, who have accepted those awards and who have done an excellent job as a Fulbright award winner. We know, we have evidence that in very concrete ways, there are certain Fulbright commissions that have selected Baylor students repeatedly because they have seen how well predecessors have done. And so you owe that, we think, to the people who will come behind you. And so that's one of the reasons why we expect that you will accept this if it's offered to you. The next thing, kind of moving through some expectations we have of you, just as we will be responsive to you, we expect that you'll be responsive to us. I promise, never will send you correspondence just to send you correspondence. We will never, talk just to hear ourselves talk. When we, have things to communicate to you about the Fulbright process, we believe that those are important things. And so we expect that you're, particularly we're going to use this Fulbright weekly newsletter as a forum for that. So we expect that you'll, read those, as well as any kind of individualized correspondence that we send to you. And like way, please don't go missing in action on us at any point. If you're falling behind or something, don't just say, oh, well, I'm too embarrassed to show my face. We promise it's better for you to just tell us and be frank about that and forthright, and don't make us guess, does he really want to apply or not? And so, just stay in touch, I guess is the short way to say that. and likewise, we're going to talk about process here, and there's an expectation that you will stay on schedule. We know extenuating things, circumstances arise that might, delay you a little bit from time to time, but by and large, we try to, craft a process so that you can have an expectation of when some deadlines will be coming up for you, and those deadlines exist, as we'll talk about in a moment, because this is not an easy thing to apply for, and so it's a process. It always is an iterative process, and so it's next to impossible to try to save this till the end and think you can do a good application, just because of the nature of the application. So because it's an iterative process, we build in those deadlines, so that you can create the time and space to think well and adapt your application as you go. Finally, two other expectations we have of you. One, I alluded to already. We expect you to be, as you do this, right, to bring your best self to this application process. And in sort of way, we also want to encourage you and expect you to treat this process as an occasion, as an opportunity to ask yourself the hard, deep, important questions. Not just about creating a resume and hoping they like your resume. It's different, perhaps, from applying for a job in that respect. Fulbright is asking you to talk about the things you have done and the things you hope to do, and to draw a line from one to the other that runs through Fulbright. And we can tell you that they need to know who you are. And therefore you need to know who you are. And so we like to think of this process, of course, as drafting essays that will contribute to a Fulbright application. We like to think of this, of course, filling in the components of the application. It is those things, but it's also a chance for you to ask yourself questions and to try to make sense of what it is you have been doing with your life. What are the things that you have been learning through your educational journey? Who is the person that you have and are becoming as a product of what you've been learning and what you've been doing? And where is it that you're going? These are not easy questions to ask. And again, there's a reason why we're starting this in April, before an October submission, because those are questions that can't always be answered in the drop of a hat. And so we want to really encourage that you to take that process seriously, to give it the time and space that it deserves, because we truly believe, and we have student testimony after student testimony over the years, that this is a meaningful process, win, lose, or draw, right? That whether you win a Fulbright and go have the experience of your life, or don't win a Fulbright, we want this to have had value, and we can assure you that if you bring this level of excellence to it, this will have been a valuable process for you. So we're going to transition now, kind of into the nuts and bolts and the mechanics of how this all works. But we again like to frame that from the outset, just so that you can have a clear picture of how we treat this, and how we expect you to treat this, and how you can expect us to treat you through this process. So with that, I will hand it back to Dr. Baniewski.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hogue. So I'm going to talk about some of the specifics of our application process here, and to echo some of Dr. Hogue's words here. We do this because it is we have a fairly detailed sort of scaffolding that we like to set up to help support you and mentor you as you pursue this award through your application. And because it's something that takes time to develop the sort of detailed and nuanced answers that you would like to, and also maybe simultaneously having a process as long as starting the application now as opposed to a couple months from now. It allows you to pursue your application develop your application while not doing so at a frantic pace, which just doesn't lend well to developing a really strong application. So those two reasons are, this is why we found this detailed sort of process is helpful. So we don't want to create unnecessary sorts of things, but each of these components we've found to be helpful. And so without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, and I've got a little Word document that we've designed. This will be on our Canvas page that I do keep saying that we're going to invite you to, and we will invite you to this Canvas page here very soon. That we're just finalizing some final some updates to some of the resources there, but it has a lot of Baylor specific resources about all different aspects of the application that we know is helpful. So probably the most helpful documents are the essays from previous winners that you have access to. I think we have something like 15 or so years worth of essays. So the most recent essays would probably be most pertinent. But anyway, this document that I'm going to show you will be on there. But I felt like it would be helpful to see it as well as hear it as I'm talking about it. That's at least the kind of learner I am. I teach poetry as my PhD is in English. And so I always, whenever I'm teaching poetry, I want to read it out loud. I want my students to see it. And so maybe this is an artifact of that, but here we go. Let's see. Here we go. My screen is now shared. I should note that this is broken down into a sort of a month-by-month look at things. So I'm just going to run through and give some explanation about some of these different aspects. And so we've held a number of info sessions and workshops. So we've already started the application process here. And I should note that one important initial step is to just open an online application. I know you've hopefully read that in the last 2 newsletters that we sent out, but if you haven't done that already, we do want you to open an online application on the Fulbright website. The reason why we do that is there is a timestamp when you start that. We have no idea if that actually factors into the committee's decision, but we know that the committee can see that. So if you're already working on it now, we'd rather have you open it now rather than do all the work from now until October, but open in the application in September. So in the month of May here, so we have a number of things that we're asking you to either participate in or complete. So for the study research award, we have just after the end of the semester here, we've got an essay info session. And so we've talked about the essays in some general ways, but we are going to give you some very detailed, specific information about the essays themselves, the statement of grant purpose and the personal statement. And it may seem like, oh, there are only 2 essays for the study research award. The statement of grant purpose is 2 pages. The personal statement is 1 page. That's easy. I can knock that out really quickly. But you have a lot to say in a very short period of time, or a lot you need to say. And so it's hard to say everything that you need to say in such a short space, but also in an elegant way. And so, working on that style is important. So we kind of give some very specific guidance there. There's no formula for these essays. However, we found that there are very specific things that you do want to discuss. So we're going to hold that at 1 p.m. Central Time on the 10th, just like all of our other info sessions and award and workshops. The Zoom link will be on our Office of Engaged Learning Fulbright page. So look out for that there. On the 12th, we're going to ask you to complete 2 different documents. And so this will these documents will do a number of things, but they're going to lay a foundation for the sort of backbone of your application. So there's an essay free writing document where we have several either different questions or prompts that we want you to just take 5 or 10 minutes for each of these questions or prompts and start answering these questions, and it will help generate the material for your essay. So this is in service of that writing that first draft of your essay, and then an application detail document. It's really a short document. We're just going to ask you to list your name, award, the country that you're applying for, who your 3 letters of rec folks will be, your faculty mentor, and your letter of affiliation, who you're planning to reach out for that. We're going to say more about a couple of those latter things here in a bit. But this, I know you've conveyed this information to us a number of times, but you can think of this as a funnel process. We started with a large number of people that we reached out to, and so and even in the last Google Doc that we asked you to fill out, we asked for some of this information, but for a number of you, that's kind of shaped and changed, and some of you didn't know what award you're applying for, what country. So if your award and country has stayed the same, then forgive us for asking this again. But for a number of folks, it's been pretty fluid, and so this just helps us know how to help you. So we don't want to Google form you to death, but there will be another Google form, and it will be a short form, and we'll send out the link to you. So be looking out for that. I say we'll find both of these on Canvas. That is a lie. I need to change that. The application details document will be a link that we send out. So then in May, Dr. Hogue and I are going to meet with all of you in small groups. And what we're going to do is you're going to bring in that free writing document. And this is going to be a way for us to help mentor you as you start and I guess not start, as you continue to develop from that, the free writing document to your first draft, to bridge that gap between those two documents. So we're going to, there may be some further insights that we note, but that time we want it to be a really kind of practical time for you to come in and share what you've come up with and what you think you might want to write about. And then we're just kind of workshop that. And it'll be good for you to, so that free writing document, getting it from your head to the paper, that's one helpful step. But then having to articulate it out loud will also be, might feel terrifying to say that in a group, but for those introverts, but it's a helpful step because it compels you to articulate in another way your interests and other aspects of your candidacy here, and that will really help develop what you end up putting in your essay. And so we're going to just also provide any kind of helpful feedback there. Another thing it will do is you'll get to hear what some other folks are going to be writing about, and so that might spark some ideas as well. So we hope it will be a time that is just filled with having those different ideas come to mind. And let's see what's next. May 15th. So we're asking you to start reaching out to potential letter of affiliation writers. I'm going to let Dr. Hogue talk a little bit more about the letter of affiliation once he talks again. And then you'll see this for each month, but Dr. Hogue and I have dedicated Fulbright office hours each week. Once the school year ends, my office hours will change. So a number of you have come in and chatted with me. It'll be changing to this time after the school year ends. And here's Dr. Hogue's office hour time. you can find the Zoom link and these times on our Fulbright page, or the Baylor Fulbright page. So do check that out. Okay, and I guess one more thing to say about that is this is a way we just want to be available to all of you for any questions you have throughout the process. And so this is these office hours are a really helpful way, I think, we hope to walk alongside you and help mentor you as you're pursuing this process. So Dr. Hogue and I, as the Fulbright program advisors, will be the chief people that will be mentoring you throughout this application process. But we have a whole team of folks that are going to surround you, and so we want to supply you with even further help throughout the process, your application process. So one way that we're doing this is we're going to connect you with a writing consultant. And so we're gonna have a team of writing consultants this summer. They're gonna work through your essay drafts and we'll have kind of a minimum number of drafts that we want you to work through with your writing consultant. And here's a detailed look of what that will look like. So in June, we want you to meet at least twice with your writing consultant. And so we do want one of those to be over Zoom. And so what that will look like is you will send them a draft of your essays, and they will offer written feedback. But instead of just sending it back to you, you're going to meet over Zoom, and they're going to be able to give you some feedback in person over Zoom. If Zoom is in person, you'll at least be able to see them and hear them, rather than just have the feedback in writing. And so we've each year when we do our interviews for the Fulbright, which I'm going to say a bit more, say a bit about in a little bit of time. It's after having given a lot of written feedback and some in-person feedback, but a lot of written feedback to students. And we found that that interview allows the in-person or over Zoom kind of feedback just allows really nuanced help for students. And we're on our side, we're able to say, oh, I didn't know that you were interested in this thing. You should write about that thing. Or and then on the student side, it also just allows us to give just more nuanced kind of feedback. And so this is in an effort to provide that earlier in the process, along with at the interview as well. So the second meeting doesn't really need to even be a meeting. It can just be you sending submitting your drafts to your writing consultant, and then them sending you written feedback. Okay, I think is that everything that I think I'm just reading through this real quickly. That's everything that I needed to say about June. Great. No, it's not. I lied. Again, office hours are available during June at this time. We are asking you to start completing the biographical data of your online application by June 15th. And we're just essentially, the message here should be that we just want you to start. We don't want you to leave the biographical data to the last minute, because if you're like me, without a deadline like this, I would do that. And then I'd get to the last minute and be like, oh, this takes longer than I thought. And so you're kind of hurriedly trying to complete it. So this just allows you to do this without even worrying about being too rushed at the end to complete this aspect. And then on June 30th, we're just having this reminder that you want to be continuing to pursue the letter of affiliation, reaching out to your letter of affiliation writers, developing that relationship in order to eventually ask them for a letter of affiliation. Okay, in July, it's a lot of the same. So you're going to have the same two types of meetings. Office hours are still available. You're still going to be working on your biographical data. So by the 15th of July, make sure you're continuing that. And then by the end of July, the 31st, make sure you're continuing to reach out to your letter of affiliation writers. At this point, you might have already asked for a letter, and that's great. Now on to August. So we do want you to meet with your or submit drafts. It doesn't have to be a Zoom meeting necessarily, but we do want you to submit your drafts to your writing consultant at least once during August. And the reason why we're reducing this is because we're starting the campus interviews in August. And so in order to do that, we're asking that by August 13th, you submit a near final draft of your essays. So you're going to, we're going to have a box folder that you'll just upload the essays to. And we're doing this knowing that you're still going to continue revising your essays throughout August and throughout September until our deadline on October 1st. And we absolutely want you to continue doing that. But this, we say near final draft because you'll have already been working on your essays throughout the summer, so they'll have some nuanced developed drafts of your essays. But then in order to complete the interviews, the interviews will include some variation of Dr. Hogue and myself and your writing consultant and a faculty mentor. More about that in a bit. But it allows us to read the essays before the interview in order to provide helpful feedback on the interview. Now, about the interview. So the interview is twofold. The reasons behind the interview are twofold. It's not to weed people out. There's no limit of the number of people that we can endorse for the Fulbright. So what we want, the two things that we see as as sort of benefits of the interview are to provide you with further feedback on your application. And we, as I said earlier, we always find out things in that interview that we had no idea about just from reading the documents. And so this can be a really, really helpful time to receive that feedback. We also need to write this endorsement. It's called the Campus Committee Evaluation Form as part of your application. And so this interview allows us to ask you some questions that are in line with, essentially we pull questions that are from that, the CCE, the Campus Committee Evaluation Form. We ask those sorts of questions in the interview so that we can complete this document and so that we can sing your praises. And so that's our aim there. You can see that the campus interviews will start the 16th. That's the week before the fall semester begins. Yeah, that's when we'll be beginning these interviews. So you might not, and we'll be conducting them through the rest of August, and then also throughout the month of September. So your interview might not be until September, but they will start at this point. A couple other reminders here is that on the 20th, by this date, we're asking that you request your official transcripts through BearWeb electronically. This is getting into the weeds a little bit. We'll give you some further guidance on this down the road, but you do want to, you'll want to request official transcripts through BearWeb, and they're called e-transcripts. They'll just email them to you. You may have already done this sort of thing. We want you to do that rather than an unofficial transcript is just the kind of the text only version, and it doesn't actually even say Baylor University on it. But the official transcript, it's this beautiful official looking transcript. It's unofficial once you actually open the email, but that doesn't matter. Fulbright only wants an unofficial document, but we just want the one that looks really nice. And then on the 31st, if you haven't already asked for your letter of affiliation, you really want to ask by this point. Okay, I know I've thrown a lot of info at you, and I've just got a few more things to talk about here. In September, again, it will be filled with campus interviews. You're going to continue your essay revisions, and one last plea, if you haven't already asked for the letter of affiliation, you definitely want to do that at this point. And then October 1st is our campus deadline. The national deadline is October 12th, but we're asking you to complete and submit your application by the 1st. The reason for this is, there are a couple of reasons. It just allows, you know, if it allows us not to have to worry about things coming down to the wire, and you know, it will save us from you know, having a heart attack or something like this. But then also another really important thing that it does is that it allows us the space to complete those campus committee evaluation forms and having your completed application write these forms. Okay, stop sharing my screen. So that is all that I have for our Baylor process specifics here. I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Hogue, and he's going to note a few more things about letters of recommendation, et cetera, and then we'll open things up to questions.
Hanging in there. We know there's a lot to throw at you here at the beginning, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. One of the things we do want to emphasize really right from the start, and you probably have already done this as you began just investigating the possibility of pursuing a Fulbright, but you know, do look on the Fulbright website where, you know, they have some sort of collapsible forms on the website where you can see exactly what's required of this application. And then we kind of Baylorize that and put our various elements there. But if you need that just kind of quick snapshot, it is available to you there on that Fulbright website. I'm going to talk with you about two important components of the application that require you to start right now. And again, there's a reason why we start this in April, because some of this stuff can take a while. So Dr. Baniewski has mentioned a couple of times this thing called a letter of affiliation. And so I'm going to tell you a little of what that is, and also maybe if you've already looked into what it is, you're thinking, oh my goodness, that sounds terrible. So we just want to demystify this thing a little bit. So when you apply for a Fulbright Study Research Award, you're required to obtain an affiliation letter from someone who will host you in the country where you're proposing to go. You might imagine that can require a little bit of work. You've got to form some relationships that will allow you to make that request, and that will encourage the person you're requesting to be willing to grant the request, right? And to submit this letter on your behalf. So again, that sounds, we tell this to students all the time, this sounds incredibly daunting, and we don't want you to be overwhelmed by it. There are a whole host of avenues for you to pursue to obtain this letter that you need. And the type of letter of affiliation that you need depends really on the type of award you're pursuing. So let me be clear about this. I know some of you might be wavering between doing a study research or doing an ETA. If you're doing an ETA, you do not need a letter of affiliation. If you're doing a study research award, you do need a letter of affiliation. And let me also mention one other thing about that. If you're doing a study research, there are a couple of countries out there that say a letter of affiliation is not required. I'll, as clearly as I can say it, a letter of affiliation is required. Even if it says it's not required, it is required. And the reason we say that is we have never seen a person win a study research award who did not have a letter of affiliation. So even if it's an optional thing, the option is yes. And we just have all the evidence we need that's the case, that you should try to obtain one. So for example, the most prominent place where it says optional is the United Kingdom. We've had many winners to the UK. We've had many not winners to the UK, and the common denominator is the winners have a letter of affiliation. We just have seen it enough. So so what is this thing, and how do you get it? Well, it's again sort of partly dependent on what type of award you're applying for. So for those of you who are aiming toward a Fulbright Study award, which means you're intending to go enroll in a graduate program in a different country on your Fulbright award, that's the thing you'll be doing on your Fulbright. If that's the case, the letter of affiliation you need is going to be someone from the program to which you are applying. So, for example, you're applying to do a Fulbright Study Research Award in English literature at the University of York. Would need to come from someone who is in the literature program, a professor in the literature program at the University of York. Affiliation in an instance like that is not a letter of admission. It's not a guarantee of admission to the program. It simply is a letter on department letterhead at the University of York's literature program that says, we have been in conversation with Maria Pratt, and Maria seems like a great candidate for our program. We are glad she's applying for the Fulbright program and applying to come study with us. We would be pleased if she did win the Fulbright to affiliate with her and host her at our institution and our department. So it's something non-binding. It's not some, again, it's not a guarantee of admission. You're not really asking for something, you're not asking for someone to spend 100 hours looking at all your materials or anything of that sort. It's just a short letter from the department on their letterhead that will be sent to you, that you'll obtain and add as a PDF file to your application. How do you get something like that? There are a number of avenues for doing that. So the first avenue that we would encourage is for you to think about, presumably you're going to be proposing to go study in a program that has some connection to the program you're studying in right now. Well, likely you're working with some faculty who are good at building relationships with colleagues, perhaps even around the world. And you might go to a mentor of yours and say, Dr. Jones, I am proposing to do a Fulbright to go study at the University of York and study literature there. Would you be willing to look with me at the faculty at the University of York and help me determine who might be a good person for me to begin a conversation with, to begin thinking about studying under the tutelage of this person? So that person might be the graduate program director or some equivalent of that, or it might be a person whose expertise is closely aligned with the things that you want to study. It's that Dr. Jones, your Baylor mentor here, might be willing to send an email, colleague to colleague, CCing you, saying, Dr. Smith over at the University of York, I've got this great student, Maria, who's interested in pursuing a degree with you at the University of York. Would you be willing to have a discussion with her? And in an instance like that, you can sort of, go with how the conversation goes. That's a great avenue into a conversation like that. And our encouragement is that you don't right out of the gate come screaming in, blaring, hey, Dr. Smith at York, I know you've never met me, but I need you to write me a letter of affiliation, right? It's sort of this, like trying to feed a squirrel, right? You want to ease into this process. You want to begin just with a conversation about your interests and their interests and the program and what kinds of classes are available and the kinds of things you might be, talking about with a prospective program to which you would like to apply. So those are the kinds of things you want to begin a relationship and begin a conversation. Our encouragement to you, and I hope I'm being as clear as I can be on this. Our encouragement to you is that you begin that process now. And the reason is, particularly in European countries, although this is true in places not just Europe, faculty members and other professionals as well, in many countries, love their summers. and they love to disappear during their summers and not touch their email until they return back to regular office hours come September. No contact until September. I'm going to tell you, you are going to be sweating bullets because this thing you've been working hard on all summer hinges on this letter that you have not received from this person you have not even met. and it's going to be really stressful. And so we want to encourage you to begin this process, a gradual process that starts now. There are other avenues besides just the one I mentioned, like talking with one of your Baylor professors. Sometimes you may know this about the Fulbright program. The Fulbright program is actually an exchange program. So not only does it send Americans abroad, it also brings people from abroad to the United States. And part of that is the hope that there is an exchange through the academy, right? Through universities. There's an exchange that happens there. And I'm gonna ride this University of York example as far as I can ride it here. So let's imagine you're applying to go to York, and you go into this wonderful directory that Fulbright keeps of people who have ever come to the United States on a Fulbright, and you can look through that directory and realize, once upon a time, there was a biologist from York who came to the United States on a Fulbright. You know what that person has agreed to? That person has agreed to cultural exchange between her institution and the United States, right? And so that person is someone you could turn to say, hey, I know we haven't met, but I'm reaching out to you directly because I would like to apply for a Fulbright to the University of York. I realize we're not in the same field of study, but I wonder if you might, as a past Fulbright recipient, be willing to introduce me to your colleague over in the literature department, so that I might begin a process of obtaining the kind of affiliation that I know you had to obtain as part of your process. So there is some sort of built-in exchange as part of this. The bottom line is we're going to help you pursue those various avenues. We're going to equip you. We've got some documents on our long-promised Canvas site that help you know what kinds of questions to be asking as you begin these conversations about an affiliation letter. We're here to kind of walk you through this process, but it's going to require you to be a little bit assertive, right? It's going to require you to build a relationship with someone in a different country. It's frankly going to be at the beginning of a process of something that you're proposing to go do as a Fulbright, which is introduce yourself to people, get to know people in these foreign lands, right? And so it's practice, right? It's practice for becoming a Fulbright winner. And so again, we're here to help you through that process, start to finish, and have some guidance for you. But we like to talk about that from the outset because you need to start soon, and we want to demystify what I know probably sounds on its face like a daunting process, and just simply say it's not as daunting as it sounds. There are avenues to explore. So we'll be glad to answer some questions about that, and we know you're sure to have questions that are specific to you that we're glad to help you with and walk you through as you move through that process. I want to transition real quick to another type of letter that you're going to need, which is 3 letters of recommendation that are part of your Fulbright process. And again, we like to start talking about this now because maybe not quite as much as their European counterparts or global counterparts. American professors also are known to disappear over the summer. And so we don't want you sweating bullets waiting on this person that really should be writing your letter, waiting until August or September for them to respond to you, right? So we want you to begin this conversation now with the people you would like to ask to write letters on your behalf. So who should those people be? Well, the sort of key lens through which you ought to view potential letter writers is this. Speak. I am proposing to go do as a Fulbright Award winner. Proposing to do a Fulbright Study Research Award, it is highly likely that one of the people or some of the people who are able to do that are professors you've taken who know your intellectual interest, know your intellectual ability. It's probably pretty cut and dry, right? It's going to be professors. But one of the things that we really want to encourage is that you, as you're considering those professors, we want you to consider with a sort of special interest on the ones who might be able to speak to your ability to engage in the cultural exchange that is the heart and soul of the Fulbright award process. For example, I've had the pleasure of traveling abroad with Kale here, who's on the call on the left side of my screen. I have seen Kale in a foreign context. I have seen her enrolled at a foreign university. I probably have a decent lens into knowing that Kale is up to the challenge. She immersed herself well. She is capable of cultural exchange and adaptation, right? And maybe you haven't had that exact experience, right? But perhaps you have had experiences, talking about international global issues in a class, or you've had professors who have seen you in a context where you've had to engage and had to demonstrate cultural humility, or things of that nature, things that are really can sort of speak to components of the Fulbright process. Those are the people you need to prioritize. And we are here to talk with you about that, to be a sounding board for you if you're thinking, I've got 5 people I could use, but I know I only need 3, so who might be the best 3? We're glad to talk with you about that. The other thing that I want to say about that, they're going to be writing you a letter, and I think it's contingent upon you to provide them with some information about what this letter is, and where you're proposing to go and what you're proposing to study when you're there. Those kinds of things, I think are going to require you not just to shoot an email that says, "Would you write me a letter for a Fulbright?" We would encourage you to invite a conversation with that person so that you can explain what's motivating you toward this. What are the things you hope they might be able to talk about? Offer to provide them with some materials. Tell them, hey, come August, I will have worked through 4+ drafts of my essays, and I'll be glad to show you my essays so you can see exactly what I'm proposing to do, exactly what's motivated me toward this. Those kinds of things that will be helpful so that they can write highly tailored letters on your behalf. We're also going to ask you, as part of that, as part of identifying who those 3 people are, we're going to ask you to identify one of those in particular to play the role that we call the faculty mentor. That's a person who is going to suit up and join Team Hannah and Team Valerie and Team Elaine and be part of your Fulbright support team. Meaning, in addition to writing one of your letters of recommendation, they're also going to serve on your Fulbright interview panel in August or September. And on that panel, we're going to train them, by the way, and talk with them about what that entails. On that panel, they're also going to be the lead person who helps construct your campus committee evaluation. So Dr. Beniewski and I are going to be part of that campus interview, but Dr. Beniewski and I work with dozens and dozens of Fulbright applicants. And in most cases, we probably don't know you as well as your lead faculty mentor knows you. To be the one carrying the day, right? To be the one that is articulating just how awesome you are and how qualified you are and how happy Baylor is to endorse you. Now, we're going to work with them on that. We're going to help sort of help them speak the language of Fulbright. They're not going to be out on an island doing this alone, right? They've got our support as they do that. But we like for it to be someone, we like for the lead author of that document to be someone who knows you well, who knows you better than we do. And so that's why we ask you to identify one person to serve in that role of Fulbright faculty mentor, to be a letter writer on your behalf, but also to join in that part of the process come early fall, where we're interviewing and writing this campus committee evaluation. They might even be someone who reads a draft or 2 along the way if you want that additional sounding board. You might request that of them at some point. We don't build it into the expectation, but I suspect if they're willing to join forces on your behalf, they'll be willing to do that kind of thing. So I'm going to stop there. I know we are continuing to inundate you with information, but some of this is some immediately actionable stuff. As I unmute and hand this back to Dr. Baniewski, I'm going to have to apologize that I need to actually dart out because I've got a daughter who I don't want to leave on the curb of school right now. So it's been a pleasure to be with you. There's a lot of stuff coming at you, and there's a lot still in front of you. But I want you to know that we are here to support you with that. We are here to demystify anything that needs demystifying, and to just really be. It is an honor to be part of your process, and it's a joy to do that. So we're excited to continue with you down this journey. So Dr. Baniewski, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hogue, and have a good rest of your day. So I will open things up to questions here, and actually real quickly, just to anticipate one or two questions that we typically get. So the faculty mentor will be one of your three recommenders. So it's not going to be some additional person. That's a frequent question. Another thing, as Dr. Hogue noted, I know his earbuds were going out a little bit, and so this might have muffled some of this, but essentially with your recommenders, you want to ask three people who are going to be able to speak directly to what you want to do here in the Fulbright. And so that's going to be both that academic side of things, pursuing the master's degree that you're wanting to pursue with the study award, but also that cultural exchange piece. And that not every recommender is going to be able to speak to that necessarily, but you will be giving them your documents and meeting with them and informing them why you're wanting to do this. And so in that way, they'll be able to know what you're wanting to pursue with that sort of cultural exchange piece. But it's probably going, since study is the main component, it's probably going to be three faculty members. That doesn't always have to be the case. There could be maybe one other recommender that just kind of fits and knows you and can speak to what you want to go do with this study award. That's not a faculty member, and so but you can always ask us those sorts of questions. So I just wanted to anticipate a few questions there, but I'm going to stop talking here. I want to open things up to you guys. What are your questions?
Can you submit more than 3 letters of recommendation, or is that like the cutoff?
You can only submit 3. So there is a cutoff. Something we can do though, if we want to get around this, if there's someone who, if you have 4 people that you think can really speak to what you're wanting to do here, we can get a quote from someone and then ask another recommender to insert that quote. And that actually, that makes that recommendation look even better, because this one person is saying all these wonderful things about you, and they're saying, oh, but I'm not the only one. This other person knows this, said this thing to me, my colleague. And so we could do something like that. And we would you could ask, if you felt comfortable, you could ask a professor to do that, or if you don't, then we'll facilitate that. That's not a problem. Sarah has raised her hand.
Hi, sorry the video's off. I'm sick, but I was wondering, I have not been on a study abroad. So for students like that, how do you best advise that we show our ability or openness to a cultural exchange?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And the great thing about the Fulbright is that there are many ways to make a case for Fulbright. So if you have experience in another international context, whether it's study or otherwise, that's a great way to be able to say, hey, I've gone to Bolivia, and I was able to really get involved in this specific aspect of Bolivian culture. And though I'm not proposing to go to Bolivia, I can't wait to go live in and get to know another culture of this world. If you don't have that sort of experience, Fulbright loves to send people to countries that just haven't been afforded the opportunities to do to pursue those sorts of things. So you might feel like, oh, I since I don't have that experience, then I'm a bad candidate. That's not true at all. You can say from afar, there are a couple of things that you can do. You can say from afar, I have I have learned about Dutch culture, and I have watched, I don't know if there's a Dutch film or not, if that's a thing, but I love Dutch poetry and Dutch novels and Dutch food, etc. And in my coursework, I've learned about the Netherlands, but I just haven't had a chance to go there. That is a compelling case to make. Fulbright wants to give people those opportunities. So that's one thing you could do. But to speak to that cultural exchange experience, Fulbright means culture and cultural exchange writ large. So you can talk about, maybe you haven't been to the Netherlands, but you live, anybody anywhere lives in a cultural context. So you can talk about US culture at a national level, at a regional level, at a state level, at a local level. You all have the benefit of either being from Texas and or at least going to school in Texas. And Texas is a state culture that just captures the imagination of people around the world. So you can talk about Texas barbecue or two-stepping or whatever kind of aspect of Texas culture. And you could say either I'm from Texas and I love two-stepping and I want to teach people in the UK to two-step, or you could say I'm from California and I didn't know anything about Texas barbecue, but I've fallen in love with it and it's been really interesting. And so that demonstrates on the ground here that sort of cultural exchange that you've participated in. And then it also gives you a way to talk about how you might share your slice of US culture in the country that you go to. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
When choosing the faculty mentor out of the three people that we want to write our letters of rec, how do we best do that? Like, would it be the professor that knows us best? Because I know a few professors, but one I studied abroad with, he was the professor who went abroad with us. But I also know professors at Baylor or that are in my program who'd be better suited to speak into my study program that I want to do through Fulbright. So which would be what faculty mentor, I don't know, which would be best suited, I guess.
Jared, that's a great question. And sorry, I was smiling. I was distracted by Kale's cat that made a nice entrance into that. I've got it on the gallery view here. So that's a great question. And, there really are a couple ways of going about this. You hit the nail on the head there about you want to ask someone who knows you the best or knows you really well. That could be someone that you've studied abroad with and that has witnessed you in that context. If you're applying for to study literature at the University of York, to continue with this example, then if there's an English professor that knows you really well, that also makes a lot of sense too. The faculty mentor role is not a Fulbright thing. They don't require that. We've just developed that because we think it makes sense as in the ways that Dr. Hogue articulated. And so it's not like you're not going to get that wrong. So I wouldn't, pressure's off for that. But just picking someone that knows you well, that can speak to why you'd be a good fit for this Fulbright award. Any other questions that you have?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So there's a specific grad program in England that is offered at a few different schools. What do you recommend to be the latest point to decide a specific school to start like focusing on?
Valerie, that's a great question. I would say now. I mean, now is a good time. I mean, we ask that you tell us that you commit to a certain award in a certain country early on, just because we want you to be able to work on the application. You know, if you were to change that to, you know, if you started with the University of York, but you decided you wanted to change that to University of Liverpool, that's not going to be the end of the world. It will mean that you're going to have to, there will still be things you could salvage for your essays, I'm sure, but it will mean that you'll kind of start over at some level. It's just a different program. And so you'll have to talk about the program at Liverpool in a detailed way. And so, so in that sense, it can just get you behind, or it just creates more work for you. So that's why we want you to figure this out earlier on. And also with the letter of affiliation, it does impact that process as well. So, you know, we technically, we asked you to, on March 31st to commit to a specific country and award, knowing that there would be some change. So yeah, I would try to figure that out now. And a couple ways to do that, come talk to us. We're happy to talk this through with you during our office hours are probably the best ways to do this. But so right now, for this month, my office hours are still 4 to 5 on Mondays. Or if that doesn't work, then we can figure out a different time to meet. Another way to think through this would be which something you're already probably doing, but just go to each of those universities' websites and look at each program and just try to decide, all right, which one's a good fit for me. So that, yeah, do you have a follow-up question to that, or does that help? I didn't say a specific date. I just said now.
No, it's good. Thanks.
Yep. Other questions? Great. Well, thank you all for taking the time to join in today. I do hope we hope that it's been helpful to be introduced to the specific aspects of the process, along with a number of the other things that we mentioned. I hope it's abundantly clear that Dr. Hogan and I both are here to help you guys in any way, and so do feel free to reach out to us whenever you've got questions. We love being able to either answer your questions via email or to meet and meet over Zoom or whatever. So do feel the freedom to do that. And it was good to see each of you today. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.